You've heard it all before. Men are aggressive. Women are diplomatic. Men are loners. Women like to chat. Men like cars. Women like people. Men like sports. Women like soaps. Men spend forever in the bar. Women spend forever in the bathroom. Men can't sew. Women can't throw. Are these cultural cliches, or do they have some biological root? When a child is born, the first question is it a boy? Is it a girl? Why does this matter? Today, men and women compete for the same jobs, enjoy the same pleasures, and live similar lives. Equal opportunities and political correctness have made gender difference an old-fashioned, irrelevant idea. But somehow, what sex you are still matters.
The physical differences between human males and females is quite small, but we have, over the past few thousand years, in my view, amplified those small biological differences to create what are now known to us as opposite sexes.
As opposite sexes, there are some physical differences between us that are not obvious. For instance, boys are born with bigger brains, but girls' brains are more densely packed with neurons. Women are more likely to be right-handed, but men have longer forearms. Men have a better sense of sight, but women have a better sense of smell. And women live longer. Many of these physical differences are relics of our ancestral past. Once they helped us to survive. Now, they are an encumbrance. And there are other more fundamental differences between us that cannot be seen because they are inside our brains. Having different brains has given us different skills which exist today as stereotypes, like men being better at parking, women being more empathic and caring, men having a sense of direction, women being able to do more than one thing at the same time. Biology is not our destiny, but it affects everything we do. To find out how it shapes us, we compared two teenagers who are twins in time. Alex Riley grew up in Los Angeles, and London is the home of Aaron Providence. They are two typical teenagers, both on the verge of their 14th birthday, and they have never met. But they have one thing in common. They are exactly the same age.
I'm Aaron Providence. I'd like to be a pilot or in the RAF, anything to do with planes.
My name is Alexandra Lowe Riley, and I am 13 years old. My birthday is October 30th, 1987. I like to go to movies and go shopping, and I really like going shopping.
Alex Riley enjoys the company of girlfriends, and when she is not studying, she plays soccer for a local team. Aaron Providence also plays this game, but he prefers to build electronic machines and spend time on his computer. How do an average boy and girl get to be so different? Is it their upbringing, or does their biology have an influence? They may be twins in time, but as opposite sexes, it is more than the Atlantic Ocean that separates them. These differences between Alex and Aaron began before they were children, even before they were babies. In fact, they began right at the moment of their conception. By the law of averages, it is more likely that Aaron and Alex would both have been conceived as boys. To find out why, we must look at their father's sperm. Every sperm swimming up into the womb carries a sex chromosome, X for girls and Y for boys. The X-bearing sperm swims slowly, laboring under the weight of the female sex chromosome that contains 1,000 genes. By contrast, the Y-bearing sperm are light and fast, as the male chromosome is much smaller. It contains a mere 180 genes. In this acidic environment, traveling light is an advantage. At conception, there are 20% more males than females. Once fertilization has taken place, male and female zygotes begin to grow. Even as tiny organisms, the two sexes develop differently. The male is much faster out of the blocks, growing at almost twice the speed of the female. Why this happens is still a mystery. For Aaron's parents, Harvey and Tracy, and Alex's parents, John and Beverly, it was the beginning of a new adventure. This was going to be their first child.
I'd been feeling strange, just not my normal self, and I went for a pregnancy test and I found out I was pregnant. And I came home and I knocked on the front door and Harvey was actually in, and he opened the front door and I was just bawling my eyes out, and he said, "What's the matter?" And I said, "I'm pregnant." And it was like, "Oh, what are you crying for?" You know, a typical man sort of going, "Why are you crying? You should be happy." And I said, "I am happy."
I remember a good friend of mine saying that when she was first pregnant, she knew instantly. So I was waiting for that instant feeling, and I never felt that feeling. So I was a little disappointed. Just another day.
Though the fetuses in their womb are different sexes, for the first 6 weeks of life, every embryo looks exactly the same. They are, by default, female. Then, within the space of a few hours, an extraordinary thing happens. Within the mass of DNA that has been supplied by the Y chromosome, there is one gene called SRY. This releases a protein that binds with other strands of DNA, changing their shape and forcing them to follow suit. Soon, this protein fills every cell in the body, initiating the growth of the testes. And the testes produce testosterone, which soon begins to pulse through the fetus, imposing itself on the developing brain. The SRY gene contains the essence of maleness. This is the defining moment in the creation of two sexes.
I just thought it was going to be a boy. I just had an intuitive sort of feeling that I was going to have a boy, and I was carrying a boy.
Without testosterone, the genitals continue to develop as female. If it's a boy, then between the 7th and 12th week of pregnancy, he experiences the same levels of testosterone as an adult man. This surge builds the male genitals from a female template. But the testosterone has another effect. It makes the male fetus more fragile.
Right from the start, males are at a disadvantage. For instance, if the mother has a terrible shock, like some kind of car crash or something like that, if she's carrying a male, then she's more likely to lose it than if she's carrying a female, or the male is more likely to be damaged. So the vulnerability of the male, as soon as conception has occurred, is greater than that of the female.
The male is more at risk of brain damage, cerebral palsy, or deformity. Some scientists even believe that the male, with its Y chromosome, is attacked by the mother's antibodies as foreign genetic material. For whatever reason, he is vulnerable. Even though 120 boys are conceived for every 100 girls, 15 boys will die before birth. Whether diet or lifestyle can influence these in utero developments is still not known. One fact is certain: the womb is the last place the baby will be influenced by biology alone. The world will offer new sensations and thoughts, and these will mold and shape what nature has begun. But first, the baby has to endure birth itself. Statistically, girls stand a better chance of getting through.
There is some evidence to suggest that at birth the female is more mature than the male. Perhaps the testosterone has a slowing down effect, that it produces greater muscle bulk, but not necessarily greater neuronal development. In any case, many parents and pediatricians are well aware of the fact that baby girls seem a little more alert, a little brighter on average than baby boys, who seem just a little bit more lost and vague when they're born.
At birth, the testosterone level in a boy's body is the same as a fully grown man. This makes him heavier than a girl, but his lungs and bones are less developed. At this stage of life, girls have a head start of up to 4 weeks.
Most people don't know that boys are more fragile than girls. The expectation is that a boy is tougher than a girl. There is some evidence for this in the sense that the boys tend to be heavier and more muscular when they're born. This preconception also influences the way in which we treat children, so that mothers and of course fathers and others will look at a little boy and sort of project boyness into him and say, all right, he's a boy, he's tough, and if he's not, we'll make him tough.
Like many other baby girls, Alex Riley was quick to recognize her surroundings.
She was under 6 pounds. Right. Just under 6 pounds and 18 inches long.
18 and a half. Alex! No. Okay, look, go towards...
I really think that first year was pretty easy. I was trying to keep her away from any gender-biased toys, that sort of thing. I mean, she did end up having dolls, but they were given to her.
Adults are often thought to be responsible for creating male and female stereotypes in very young children. And the proof of this is found in the so-called Baby X experiment. In it, men and women are given a baby that has been dressed up as the opposite sex. Instinctively, the adults give the infants toys they think they will like. The boys are given guns, and the girls are given dolls. But are the adults merely responding to pre-existing differences?
The brain is built in certain ways, and then the culture molds it in other ways. But you cannot make a boy into a girl, and you cannot make a girl into a boy.
At birth, both boys' and girls' brains are only a quarter of their final weight. In the first 6 months, they develop literally millions of new connections. Though the levels of sex hormones in their bodies are decreasing, boys and girls are already showing signs of behaving differently. Studies have shown that infant girls are quicker to recognize their families and show more willingness to communicate. Boys, on the other hand, have a greater ability to track a moving object, and their behavior is already more aggressive and boisterous. Where do these differences come from?
We have to get away from the idea of nature versus nurture. There's no such thing in the biological world.
Michael Lewis of the Institute of Child Development in New Jersey believes that the differences between the sexes begin with biology, which is then molded by upbringing. Nature and nurture are working in concert. His opinions are based on 30 years of research watching boys and girls at play in his laboratory. Using a one-way mirror, he has conducted a number of experiments to observe clear differences in the way one-year-olds behave.
We have reason to believe that the girl child and the boy child are biologically designed to respond differently to frustrations.
In a case study using over 200 children, he tests what happens when infants are separated from their mothers.
The boy child attempts in a more solitary fashion to overcome the barrier by pushing it down. The girl child attempts to overcome barriers by essentially calling on others to help her. There are different strategies which we suspect have biological consequence.
Is estrogen and testosterone experienced in the womb responsible for this behavior? Lewis believes that it is.
All right.
He has also identified a significant emotional difference among 3-year-olds.
Would you like to hold her? Yeah, you can have her. The doll's arm fell off. You want to fix her? Do you want me to help you? I have a doll right here. Will you hold her for me? The doll's arm fell off.
Now, he's not trying to repair it. It's not his fault. Whereas the girl tried to repair. She saw it as something she was responsible for.
The doll's arm fell off.
He is not responsible.
The doll's arm fell off.
Oh, because it's not, maybe I don't know that.
The girls are predisposed to nurture and exhibit guilt. The boys do not.
The girl's arm?
If this is already noticeable in 3-year-olds, it suggests the old cliché that women are more sympathetic has a biological root. But are the fairer sex really more sympathetic? To find out, an 8-year-old was left seemingly alone in a busy street and rigged with a secret camera. The girl's mother was asked to stand just out of vision. The girl stood there for 20 minutes, during which time 74 people walked past.
Females overwhelmingly show more empathic behavior than males do. And we believe this empathic behavior are tied to the fact that girls and women are more likely than boys and men to focus on themselves in order to understand the emotions of others.
Out of the 74 passers-by, 7 women stopped, and 1 even called the police. There was no response from the men.
Are
you all right?
Yeah.
Is somebody looking after you?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
There is a chemical reason for empathic behavior in women. Women produce more oxytocin, which is a brain chemical stimulated by childbirth. Oxytocin is designed to help mothers nurture their offspring, and it also gives women a greater ability to empathize with others. Why do men not share this natural ability?
In an evolutionary sense, women have had the primary role of the care of other people. Children, sick, men, themselves. In order to care for others, you need to make a best guess about what is it that they're feeling or thinking. And the best way to do that is to ask, what would I be thinking or feeling?
Does evolution hold the key to different behavior in men and women? To find out why these basic differences might have arisen, we have to look back to our ancestors to see how we evolved millions of years ago. Helen Fisher is an anthropologist and is one of the world's leading experts on gender differences. She has spent the last 20 years studying the origins of male and female behavior, and her fieldwork has often led her back to the highlands of Tanzania. This is the home of the Hadza tribe. They are a small group of 750 people who are among the last hunter-gatherers left on Earth.
What's important about the Hadza lifestyle is that it's very similar to the kinds of lifestyle that all of our ancestors lived for millions of years on the grasslands of Africa. We came down from the trees by 4 million years ago. We were standing up on 2 feet by 3.5 million years ago, and we had probably begun to scavenge animals, hunt animals a long time ago. And it was on those African grasslands, not a place just like this, but this place exactly, where all of our human brain developed, all of our skills developed, men's skills and women's skills.
Helen Fisher believes that the Hadza way of life may shed new light on how the male and female brain became specialized. As hunters and gatherers, the Hadza do not tend animals or grow food. Every day, the women scavenge for roots and vegetables, while the men hunt game and gather honey. Both sexes rely on each other, and they have evolved sophisticated strategies for survival. Their herbal remedies protect them from bee stings, snake bites, and malaria. Women are at the center of Hadza society, often providing 80% of the evening meal. While they dig, they use a skill that women excel at all over the world: language.
The Hadza are speaking a click language. It could be the oldest language in the world. It's a language like no other language. You can hear this click that they do. We know that by 2 million years ago, parts of the brain were evolving for the making of language. And so somebody was sitting around talking. They were talking a lot. And I think that it was women who used language as a tool. They needed language in order to raise their babies. They would hold the baby in front of their face and cajole it, reprimand it, educate it with words. Words were tools, women's tools. I mean, you really don't need a whole lot of words to hit a buffalo in the head. But you do need an awful lot of words to describe to children, to tell stories, to spread the news, to gossip, to talk about the boys.
It is Helen Fisher's belief that women who talked survived, and those who didn't died out. The need to survive has influenced our biology, specializing the male and female brain. To find out whether boys and girls still possess these different abilities, a series of controlled tests were devised. 50 children from the ages of 6 to 12 pitted their wits against each other. In the first test, 12-year-olds were asked to write down as many words they could think of, beginning with B. The girls averaged 34 words, the boys 25.
By age 12, a girl is better at verbal memory, at written prose, at reading comprehension. Around the world, on tests of verbal ability, at basic articulation, finding the right word rapidly, women excel.
If women have inherited a greater ability at language, what about the precise manipulation of objects? Are girls more careful than boys? Our 6-year-olds are about to find out. One of the reasons boys find this more difficult is because they have less patience than girls. And this also has a biological root.
Testosterone is one of the most complicated hormones. Certainly it creates an increase in physical strength and drive, and little boys who have an awful lot of energy, who are required to sit still in classrooms, are actually just going to become frustrated, hyperactive and inattentive, and that's one of the problems that we have to deal with.
Concrete evidence for the effects of this sex hormone on behavior is seen in girls with a very rare condition named CAH, congenital adrenal hyperplasia. While she was developing in the womb, Alexandra Lobb, like all girls, produced small amounts of testosterone from her adrenal glands. Unfortunately, these glands were overactive, flooding her developing brain and leaving her with an ambiguous reproductive system.
She's been through long spells where she's been boisterous, refuses to wear a dress. She's always off outside, disappearing, up a tree, stuck at the bottom of a ditch.
She's really good at maths. She loves sport. She loves football. And I think the size of her, in a couple of years' time, she's going to love rugby. She's quite a stocky girl.
The kind of toys children like, girls with CAH on the average, are more like boys. They also, interestingly, like to play with boys more than other girls do. So girls in general, only about 10% of their favorite playmates would be boys, whereas CAH girls, about 50% of their playmates are boys and 50% girls.
Alexandra has had corrective surgery and now takes estrogens to counteract the testosterone. But these have affected her weight.
My big fear was she going to lead a normal, fulfilled female life, and would she be able to have children? And nobody will say, even now, people won't say yes, definitely, or no, definitely not.
CAH girls provide clear evidence that testosterone experience before birth dramatically affects behavior. And this sex hormone also seems to spark an interest in mechanical things.
So it's a curious gender division here, that boys seem to be encouraged to find out how things work, and girls are encouraged to find out how people work.
Is an interest in technology another example of culture building on biology? To find out, we asked 20 12-year-olds who rode bicycles to attempt to draw them. The results were surprising. Even in this small sample, the boys seem to have a natural advantage.
When testosterone floods the male brain at puberty, men become distinctly better at geometry, at mechanical drawing, and all kinds of engineering and mechanical skills. You see this in societies around the world. There's really not too much variation in this particular gender difference.
Like making things like robots and science projects and stuff like that. Like it's a challenge, and a new challenge to try and make something or put something back together. Or if something's broken, you can try and fix it.
Both men and women share basically the same brain structure. But the male brain is more compartmentalized and more lateralized. The two sides of the brain are more different in men. They're more the same in women.
The male brain becomes more specialized as it develops in the womb. As the brain grows, estrogen helps the nerve cells connect together. This occurs in the male and female brain. But as females have higher levels of estrogen, their nerve cells are better connected. Also, the isthmus, a bridge that unites either side of the brain, is 10% thicker in women than in men. Their brain is simply better connected, which is why girls find it easier to absorb information simultaneously. they can see the bigger picture, but find it difficult to focus on one object alone, even if it is a $100 bill. In this test, the boys, with more compartmentalized brains, caught 6 bills. The girls caught none. But testosterone is also responsible for this, as this sex hormone has affected their sight.
Men are better at tracking the direction of an object. And the faster the object is moving, the proportionally better men are than women at following where that object is going. There's no question in my mind that much of the modern male brain is built on grasslands of Africa like these. Somebody had to race in on a lion that is eating its lunch and then grab pieces of meat and bring it back to camp. Men have higher levels of testosterone, giving them that assertiveness and aggressiveness to go out after the catch. They can tolerate risk better than women can. And they can tolerate risk better because they actually have a different proportions of chemicals in the brain that enable them to seek risk.
Perhaps the most unexplained relic from our ancestral past is the fact that girls just can't throw. Or can they?
Every boy will have fun imitating a girl not being able to throw a ball. The girl and her mother will say, well, that's because she's not had any practice. But there does seem to be a physiological difference between boys and girls when it comes to chucking things.
We asked 600 children from the age of 12 to 18 to put this old cliché to the test. The boys are throwing red bean bags, the girls yellow. Among the 11-year-olds, the boys were already ahead of the girls. And as the children get older, this difference becomes more and more pronounced. Why does it happen? Somehow, boys intuitively lock their wrists as they throw an object, whereas girls don't. As boys get older and their forearms grow longer, they just get better and better at it. With a few exceptions, the girls stay the same. Until the age of 11, boys and girls have low levels of sex hormones in their bodies. And for this reason, they have stayed the same shape. But their brains, which are the heaviest of all primates, have been constantly learning, preparing them for adulthood. What has this experience taught them about the opposite sex? To find out, a group of 5-year-olds were asked to approach a member of their class. They were told to stop as close to her as they felt comfortable. The same was then asked of 9-year-olds. Then it was the 12-year-olds' turn. Whereas the 5-year-olds stopped less than a foot apart, the 12-year-olds would not approach within 7 feet of each other. This development has nothing to do with biology. It's all down to a child's experience of life. But once puberty starts, all this will change. Adolescence is the first time since birth that the sex hormones begin to increase. As reproducing animals, boys and girls could not be more different. With every ejaculation, a boy produces enough sperm to inseminate all the women in America twice. For a girl, the opposite is true. She was born with 3 million eggs, but at puberty, only 400,000 are left. And she will ovulate a mere 450 of these during her lifetime.
Adolescence is an extraordinary period in that it causes both males and females to turn inward and to focus on themselves. Not only are they focusing on their own feelings and their own internal states, but they're also focusing on how they look for others.
Adolescence can be confusing. Not only are boys and girls more self-aware than they have ever been, the sex hormones changing their bodies will also affect their personalities. Their moods and attitudes and behavior are at the mercy of the chemical changes inside them.
If I want to go out and my mum says no, then I can do it, because I guess she can't stop me.
He always does what he wants to do.
Oh yeah, he's very, he's very, what's the word?
Very hard to make him do something he doesn't want to do.
No. Very particular about things being in the right place. He doesn't like his things being disorganised. Likes to know where everything is. Everything has to be written down.
She's much more interested in how she looks. Her hair has to be perfect.
I guess there's maybe two sides of me. Like, I love to go shopping and go to the beach and things like that, but then the other side would be getting dirty, and just sometimes I want to, like kick a ball really hard just to kind of get it out.
If she does reject us, I'll be very disappointed. It hasn't happened yet, so I'm hoping that it won't happen. I'm just not ready for her to grow up too soon.
Alex Riley is 14. She has decided to celebrate her birthday by inviting her friends to a pajama party. The trigger for a girl entering puberty is her weight. As soon as she reaches the magical 110 pounds, her body has produced enough estrogen to experience her first period. Estrogen slows down her metabolism and deposits a thin layer of fat all over her body. It changes her body shape, floods her brain, and reinforces every female attribute. Girls become more sympathetic, socially active, and most of all, they communicate. When boys enter puberty, testosterone has the opposite effect. The last time it reached such levels was in their mother's womb. Now it broadens their shoulders, increases strength, and creates a desire for risk-taking and excitement. Perhaps this has influenced Aaron's choice of a birthday outing. He has taken his friends to play a war game.
You'd go with boys. I doubt girls would want to go in anyway. You've got to be quite quick and be able to notice people around you, because sometimes you're trying to shoot something and you keep on getting shot and you're looking around trying to see somebody and there's somebody hiding, shooting you, and you've got to know where they are.
Another odd effect of testosterone is that the voice drops. There are several theories as to why the male voice lowers. To gain dominance in arguments, to be heard when shouting over a long distance. Physically, the vocal cords grow longer and thicken. That creates a deeper sound.
In his own sight, all young children to slay.
After the high point of the war game, comes Aaron's birthday party. It's a moment he's been dreading, as his mom has made him a cake.
You can't have a birthday without a cake. You have to have a birthday cake. You can't not have a birthday cake. Nobody has to sing happy birthday if they don't want. They can just shake your hand and say, well done, Aaron. You're 14 now. Can you lift me up? Aaron, you have to blow out. There's only one candle.
Men tend to be less emotionally expressive than women.
All this time doing this for you this afternoon.
Men tend to hide their feelings except for real anger. And I think that this is because the male brain is more compartmentalized. The two sides of the male brain are not as well connected, and we're beginning to think that even some of the parts within the each hemisphere are not as well connected in men, enabling them to contain their emotions.
Right, who wants the first bit? Well done.
For hanging in a group with loads of boys, girls don't really know what they're thinking. That's probably the hardest thing. You can't really go up to them and ask them, so it's hard to find that. Mum, make me drink.
A boy in full testosterone flood, he will be attracted towards a girl, but he won't have the skill to actually find out how she feels. So he won't be able to talk to her terribly well in an ordinary, good enough way, whereas she is quite good at seeing how he feels. She might see that he's actually quite nervous, but he might not notice that she's nervous. So we have a problem there of social skills, of understanding other minds. Girls can flourish as socially skilled people. Their friendships are very intense, and as everyone knows, girls' friendships are like little marriages. They have dreadful rows and then they make up again. So girls already have much more practice in engaging in deep personal relationships, which is a prelude to the relationships that they have to have as adults with their sexual partners.
Though adolescence is the moment when the most striking physical differences occur, there is a new and radical theory about how masculine attributes and feminine attributes can be measured, and it has nothing to do with puberty.
It turns out that the genes which control the development of the fingers are exactly the same genes which control the development of the testes and the ovaries. That is a very, very odd observation, but it's true. Because the development of the ring fingers under the influence of testosterone, males have longer ring fingers relative to their index fingers than do females.
John Manning of Liverpool University has studied the fingers of thousands of men and women, and he has come to some striking conclusions about finger length and spatial ability.
It's the ring finger that we're interested in and the index finger. So one measures from the base of the finger, which is very well marked on this finger, you can see the basal crease, to the tip of the finger. And this particular finger is about 81.65 millimeters. We measure the index finger, and the index finger on this particular hand is 69 millimeters. So a difference of 81 millimeters to 69 millimeters. Indicating high testosterone before birth. Low estrogen is what this hand is saying. Testosterone affects the development of the right side of the brain. Right side of the brain is where visuospatial ability is. Now this is important. In any kind of physical endeavor where you have to judge distance, is going to stress visuospatial ability.
Because men have more testosterone than women, they may have a better sense of space. If so, then is there any biological truth behind the stereotype that women can't park a car? 5 men and 5 women volunteered to park this car in the shortest space of time. They were similar ages and had never driven the car before. On average, each man took just over a minute to park the car. The women took almost triple the time. The ability to park a car has undoubted advantages, but what are the wider implications of John Manning's theory?
For a developing male, it is good for his cardiovascular system to be exposed to testosterone. And testosterone for a man is actually a protective against early heart attack. But short ring fingers are an indication that a man should take care. He should not smoke, he should not eat fatty foods, and he should take lots of exercise, because he may be prone to early heart disease. Whereas for a woman, it is good for a woman to be exposed to high estrogen before birth. And estrogen in women is a protective against early heart attack. For breast cancer, estrogen is actually a promoter of breast cancer, whereas a long ring finger indicates that they're protected against early breast cancer.
Oh, that's good. Then we're going to blow dry it.
According to Manning's radical hypothesis, high levels of estrogen and testosterone are a double-edged sword. For a woman, it means a better connected brain, a facility with language, but may increase the risk of breast cancer. For a man, testosterone means a better cardiovascular system, but it could encourage dyslexia and even autism. What is Manning's evidence for this? Much of his research has been with sportsmen, and he now believes that he can predict the ability of athletes based on the length of their fingers.
Playing football, for example, you have to judge where the ball is, where your foot is, when your foot is going to hit the ball, where the ball is going to go. So it's the ability to judge distances, really.
To test this theory, Manning photocopied the hands of 24 players in a top British soccer team. He then measured their fingers, and on that basis, selected his top 6.
W. R.
Manning did not know that 6 of this squad are players who compete at an international level.
X.
Would his top 6 match the coach's? Then the internationals stepped forward. Based on their finger measurements alone, Manning had selected 4 of the top 6 players.
Well, in terms of selecting the international players, we think we did exceptionally well. I mean, to get 4 out of 6 was a big surprise to us, and very impressed.
Though John Manning's theories are not universally accepted, he is assembling a growing body of evidence that cannot be ignored.
Are you looking forward to being an adult?
No. No. I like being a kid. I like having my friends here and just being young, I guess.
Giving 14 beats for his age and he giving 1 for luck.
Well, that's really nice and kind, isn't it? He's my son. Leave him alone. Beat him up on his birthday. Yeah.
When I was younger, when I was about 10, I used to think I can't wait till I'm 18 and things like that, but nah, I just think I can't believe I'm already 14.
As long as you don't do anything to my house and damage it, I'm fine.
4 years' time I could have my own house, or I could be in the RAF, like barracks and stuff like that, learning how to fly a plane. I think it's something to look forward to, but I don't want it to come too quick.
9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
As boys and girls reach maturity, they are as different from each other as they have ever been. They have inherited many attributes that in the past were designed to help them survive. Now they face a new challenge: how to attract and understand each other.
People have probably wondered why there really are 2 sexes, why we bother to go find another type that is different from us and mate and breed, given the amount of energy and time that it takes to do that. But from a Darwinian perspective, it's absolutely essential. Each one of us needs to create variety in our genetic offspring, so that in case there is some enormous environmental change, some of your infants will live.
It's the key to why all these differences exist between us. Every time our 2 sexes reproduce, there is a vital shuffling and selection of each parent's genetic information to produce a unique child. This genetic variety gives greater strength to each generation and ensures evolutionary success. Once a sexual partner is found, the differences between the women's and the men's reproductive organs will work together to help create this genetic variety. A female produces sex cells long before she has even left her mother's womb. Every girl is born with enough eggs in her ovaries to last all her fertile life. At birth, she starts off with around 3 million, each one a unique cocktail of her parents' genes. Gradually, they die off, until by puberty, there are about 400,000 eggs left. The supply will continue to dwindle until by menopause, there will only be a few remaining. A woman's egg is the largest cell in her body. It has to be, to provide all the nutrients the embryo will need in its first few days of life. Even from the moment of conception, the cell from the female is the nurturer. In contrast, a boy begins life with no sex cells at all. Only during puberty does he begin manufacturing sperm cells. From that point on, with each beat of his heart, a man will produce 1,000 sperm. The male strategy is to produce billions and billions of uniquely coded sex cells in the testes. Half are male, half female. During an average lifespan, sperm will outnumber eggs by at least 1,000,000 to 1. Some people believe this vast imbalance between sperm and egg may explain why men and women have such different attitudes to sex. Sexual attraction is triggered by many mysterious forces. Some are secretly going on all around us, right under our noses. In this Miami singles bar, the air is awash with molecules of lust. Men and women have their own distinctive scent. Our bodies secrete chemicals called pheromones. We may not be aware of them, but when they ooze out of our skin and waft into the air, they have an electrifying effect on the opposite sex. A woman's natural pheromones boost men's testosterone levels by 150%. Which makes them feel aroused. Some male pheromones have been shown to have a similar effect on women. To test the effect of pheromones, a pair of identical twin sisters agreed to take part in an experiment. They're going to pretend to be the same person to check the pulling power of a synthetic pheromone scent. While Marita hides in the restroom, her sister Mimina, who is wearing no scent, ventures into the bar. Mimina spends an hour in the bar and only gets picked up once.
Where are you from? Well, originally from Venezuela. Venezuela? But I live here in Miami.
Her sister then dabs on the pheromone scent and tries her luck.
It's very special. Okay. You're gonna drive everybody crazy then.
Even though the men in the bar assume it is still Mimina, they now flock around the twin doused with pheromones. The twins perform an identical routine, but Marita gets approached many more times than her sister. Pheromones act as unconscious biochemical triggers, which draw the opposite sexes together. But smell plays a more important role in selecting the right mate. We can actually sniff out immune systems. They are revealed in our body odor. And new research has even found that women are attracted to men whose immune systems are similar to their fathers. A woman recognizes this familiar smell, and it signals to her that a man can fight off diseases just as well as her dad. Whether men are using the same selective process to hit on Marita is still not known. But if a man finds a woman's smell attractive, then the chances are her immune system will be complementary. They will make perfect partners. Among heterosexuals, interest in the opposite sex is mutual, but their biological responses to sexual attraction may be quite different.
Both men and women are interested in sex. The most recent data indicate that 54% of men think about sex every day and that 19% of women think about sex every day. Both of the sexes have a high sex drive, I think, but they often express it differently. They're turned on by different things.
So what happens to the body when it is aroused by the opposite sex? The pupils dilate. Blood flow increases, the lips swell, and the skin sweats. The heart starts to race as blood is pumped faster and faster around the body. The parasympathetic nerves start to send messages to the groin. They have a dramatic effect on the muscles controlling the flow of blood from the veins of the penis and the vagina. As they contract, blood can no longer leave. The excess pressure builds up, and the blood pumping into the arteries has no way out. Recent research has revealed some extraordinary findings about the physiology of sex. Men and women are in a permanent state of sexual arousal, and it's their brains and their sympathetic nervous system which act as sexual brakes. Even when the penis is resting, the brain is working to keep it limp. The same is happening in women, but it's just not as obvious.
Both the sexes get intense sexual pleasure, but in the bedroom, women are the better performers. They tend to be able to have more orgasms, multiple orgasms, and when they do have an orgasm, they tend to have more contractions. Men have 3 or 4 of the initial very strong orgasms, contractions. Women have between 5 and 6 of those very strong initial contractions, and then women's contractions spread out for a longer period of time. So women can have more contractions per orgasm and more orgasms per sexual bout.
Men and women's physiology also has to be different in order to successfully reproduce. This becomes all the more obvious during sex. Using an MRI scanner, scientists can now see and fully understand the mechanics of intercourse. There's not a lot of room to maneuver inside an MRI or inside the scanner, and the couple must keep still for 15 minutes at a time. So it's not an ideal love nest, but the images produced will show the anatomy of love. This extraordinary 3D image was created from the MRI scans. The man is colored orange and the woman is blue. The results show that penetration causes a shift in the position of the uterus and occurs at a much sharper angle than scientists had originally believed. The MRI indicates that sperm are delivered much deeper into the vagina than some experts thought possible. Scientists now understand that sperm spend a shorter period fighting for their lives in the hostile environment of the vagina as they struggle to reach the reproductive cells stored beyond the woman's cervix. One of the most significant differences between men and women is the storage of reproductive cells. Women store theirs deep inside the ovaries. Men, on the other hand, store their reproductive cells outside the body. The reason is clear from this thermal image. The blue areas are cold, the red areas are hot. Sperm are very sensitive to temperature. If they were stored inside the body, they would not survive long. An unusual group of men in Switzerland decided to take advantage of their external physiology to carry out a potentially painful experiment. They wanted to know how hot their testicles would have to be to kill off the sperm and leave them temporarily sterile. Their invention had all the trappings of medieval torture.
Testicle bathing works basically like this. You have a bowl full of warm water which you should keep at a constant temperature. For this we got ourselves a thermometer which switches the heater off at 120 degrees Fahrenheit. We found a couple of old chairs, you know, the type used as a toilet chair, and we just stuck the thing on it and started to bathe.
Beat, Stefan and Ralph bathed their testicles in the hot water every day for 45 minutes, for weeks at a time. Weights kept their testicles from floating.
What was important was that you bathe more or less at the same time every day. In the beginning you have to find out what the temperature is like, obviously. 120 degrees Fahrenheit is no big deal for a testicle. The pain threshold is about 125 degrees, but the other skin is much more sensitive, so you really had to watch it if you didn't want to get burnt or end up with red patches.
Male bonding was an unexpected side effect.
In the beginning, the women just laughed at us. They probably found it hard to imagine how it works.
When they finished bathing, they tested their semen. Normally, a single ejaculation contains 500 million sperm. Amazingly, after about 3 weeks, they got the sperm count down to almost zero. This would last between 10 days and 2 months, and there were no unwanted pregnancies. They had invented an extraordinary new form of contraception, albeit a temporary one. Within a few months of stopping, their sperm counts were all back to normal.
Yes, for me it was a big experience. I had this picture in my head of how sexual potency is really important for a man. Through bathing, I basically found out that potency and fertility don't have anything to do with each other.
While seeking sterility, they managed to maintain their sense of masculinity. But what is it that really makes them male? The hormone testosterone is responsible for most masculine traits, including extra body hair, a deeper voice, increased libido, more muscle, and less body fat. In fact, it is this one simple hormone which determines most of the physical differences between the sexes. Testosterone helps to build up muscle tissue. An average man's body is only 15% fat, whereas even a slim woman is made up of almost double that amount, around 27%. The culprit is estrogen, the female sex hormone, which slows down the body's metabolism and makes it lay down fat. If testosterone makes men male, can it make a female male? Antoinette D'Alessandro is in her early 30s. She has been bodybuilding for 5 years and wanted to build up enough muscle bulk to enter competitions. So she began injecting testosterone.
I guess I kind of thought, I know testosterone is probably the quickest and shortest cut. I just thought, well, I'll take that, forgetting the fact that I was a woman, and I'm sure that'll increase my strength, increase my muscle size.
The drug is classified Schedule 3, unless for prescription use. It is in the same class as barbiturates, but many male and female bodybuilders use it. As women have significantly lower levels of naturally occurring testosterone than men, the impact on muscle development is even more dramatic.
Well, the injection takes a little while to get into your system. And through doing that, I was stronger and I did get more muscular, and I went up to about 13 stone, which was pretty heavy for me because my frame is really normally about 8.5, 9 stone really.
So she went from around 120 pounds to 180. Antoinette may have developed muscles in places she's always wanted, but she has also suffered some unfortunate side effects.
After about a month, I started noticing my voice had dropped. I started finding I was getting facial hair. You tend to lose your periods.
It can also cause an increased libido and an enlarged clitoris.
There's a side effect which is called virilization, which basically takes the female and almost trying to change it possibly into having male characteristics of the face, particularly the face.
Beard growth may be a sign of virility in men, but it's not something she wants. She endures weekly electrolysis to remove facial hairs.
It was really painful when I first ever came here, but...
I remember in the beginning, goodness me, we had to do so much, didn't we?
I started getting the side effects. Then I thought, oh, no, I've really done wrong here. And that's when I slowed it all down. And now I've stopped everything, and, you know, it's all sort of like coming back, and periods are coming back, and femininity's coming back, and my voice is a lot higher now. So everything is like changing for the better, really.
The hormone has given her many male attributes that she hadn't wished for, but it hasn't taken away Antoinette's sense of being a woman.
I would have probably carried on if the side effects weren't so severe. You know, I don't want to be walking around looking like a bloke particularly. I'm not looking to, you know, change my sex or anything. I just want to be a muscular woman.
Okay.
It was
What do you think
nice.
of that?
No, you've done a really nice job.
It's really, really lovely.
Nice job, yeah, it's excellent.
There is one notorious side effect of testosterone that has given the male hormone a bad name. Many think testosterone is responsible for turning men into raging bulls.
Testosterone is one of the most complicated hormones, and my understanding is that it can be used to explain almost anything. I think it's very dangerous to assume that biological materials can do anything more than have biological effects. So testosterone can certainly improve muscle bulk and force and pressure to do things, but it cannot possibly be the cause of complex social behaviors.
Many biologists think that testosterone can certainly affect behavior, but the results of that behavior can also trigger a change in testosterone levels. It is hard to separate cause and effect. Men are more aggressive than women, but testosterone's role is not clear. Psychologists think that the control of violent tendencies also depends on upbringing. In most cultures, boys are taught to fight their corner. Perhaps physical aggression in males has always been encouraged as a survival mechanism.
Women and men do it differently. Women do it with that ancient tool of theirs, words. Women are gossips. Women stab you in the back, men hit you in the face. I think both of those tendencies come out of our evolutionary past.
Helen Fisher is an anthropologist who researches gender differences. She visited a remote part of Tanzania to compare the roles of men and women in a hunter-gatherer society. The Hadza tribe has a way of life that has probably changed little in thousands of years. They maintain a clear division of labor between men and women. The men hunt and protect the group. Aggressive behavior has an important survival value, particularly when resources are scarce.
The Hadza are living a lifestyle that our ancestors, everybody on Earth's ancestors, lived for millions of years. And so this basic job that men have had to do, protect the group and provide for the group, have built basic gender differences in the brain.
Women, on the other hand, took control of looking after the children and gathering other sources of food. To perform these skills successfully required different mental and physical strengths. So what impact have these basic survival traits had on the biological differences between men and women? The male body is better adapted to heavy exercise. Men have more red blood cells than women, so they can carry over 40% more oxygen in their bloodstream. Men are also able to recover from exercise faster than women because they produce more enzymes, the biocatalysts that cleanse the body of lactic acid and other unwanted byproducts of sudden bursts of activity. Women's hearts beat faster than men's, particularly during exercise. This is because the female heart is 20% smaller and has to beat a lot faster to pump the same volume of oxygenated blood around the body. The bigger male heart beats more slowly, but each beat pumps more blood and therefore more oxygen. The extra muscle load puts further demands on men's lungs. That's why they are up to 20% bigger than women's. If a man's lung tissue was laid out on a tennis court, this is the surface area it would cover. One whole half of the court, including the doubles area. Whereas a woman's lung tissue would only just cover the singles area. Men's extra lung capacity and muscle power seem to give them all the physical advantages. But can they hold their own in extreme feats of endurance? One of the most grueling tests of physical stamina is New York's annual swimming race around Manhattan Island. Every year, a group of well-greased contestants prepare to enter the cold waters of the Hudson River for a body-numbing 28.5-mile swim. They use grease on their bodies to protect them from the cold water. It can be as low as 60 degrees. Two of the favorites are Connor Gunn and Morgan Fuller.
I'll be looking for your face.
I'll be looking for your feet. I think with regards to kind of strength and stamina for long distance swimming, a lot of it is very kind of shoulder based. It is lots of kind of, you know, upper body strength. So traditionally you would expect men to be kind of slightly stronger in that area.
Competing against the men is different because it opens up the field a bit. Women race one way, men race another way.
In this harsh test of physical endurance, how do the smaller, less muscular female competitors stand a chance? In this contest, women's extra body fat gives them two unique advantages. It insulates them from the cold water, and it makes them more buoyant. And although women have less overall strength than men, they have much more long-term stamina. Amazingly, at the halfway stage, Morgan is in the lead. Will she be able to hold out against the stronger Connor? The men seem unable to pace themselves. They tend to shoot ahead for the first part of the race. Connor gradually falls behind, having exhausted himself. Morgan finished the race in just over 8 hours. Connor came in 50 minutes later in 13th place.
It went really well. In the beginning, I felt strong, and I was like, all right, I'll just keep on going. And I just kept on going, feeling good, so.
But women's metabolism and body shape don't always work to their advantage. It's often assumed that women are more susceptible than men to the effects of alcohol. To investigate this further, 5 men and 5 women volunteered to take part in an experiment. They are all healthy people with normal drinking habits. Richard Hammersley is a researcher who studies the effects of alcohol on behavior. Each person drinks 5 measures of vodka and orange juice.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers. It doesn't take long for the alcohol to take effect. When they have finished their drinks, Richard Hammersley gives each person a breathalyzer test.
That's good.
Yeah, I can still taste it, I must admit.
33.
33 is below the legal limit for driving, which is 80 in most states. But over the next few minutes, as the alcohol in their stomachs is absorbed into the blood, they will soon be over the legal limit.
We double that in about 15 minutes. 22.
Oh,
Yay! That's it.
Put an advert in. Here we go.
31. 19.
Within a short time, it becomes apparent that the alcohol levels in the women are much higher than the men.
15.
Well, men and women process alcohol differently. First of all, men tend to be bigger than women, and that means that their bodies can absorb more alcohol on average than a woman's body can. At the same time, women tend to have more body fat than men do, even height for height. And the more fat you have in your body weight, the less water you have. And it's not simply a matter of the more water you have in your body to dissolve the alcohol in, again, the more you can absorb. So again, men have the advantage.
The group is also given a variety of tests to check the influence of alcohol. The subjects were asked to balance on one leg. 3 out of 5 women failed the test, whereas only 1 out of the 5 men lost his balance.
As well as that, though, even again, size for size and body water for body water, men tend to have bigger livers than women do. They also tend to have more of the key enzymes which break alcohol down in the liver and in the stomach.
15 seconds.
So for all those reasons, if you just take two people, one a man, one a woman, then the man will tend to be able to drink more than the woman.
The men also scored higher on the coordination test. Women are 4 times more vulnerable to the effects of long-term alcohol damage, and they become dependent on alcohol twice as quickly as men. The higher concentrations of alcohol in the blood will kill more liver cells in a woman's liver than a man's. So far, most of the differences between men and women have been caused by the effects of sex hormones on the body. But they also have a profound impact on the brain. Some men think they are better navigators than women. But are they? A study carried out at West Point Military Academy, where the U.S. Army trains its officers, may provide some answers. These male and female cadets are about to go on a timed orienteering course. If they fail, they will have to keep repeating the exercise until they pass. Scientist John Malinowski has studied 3,000 cadets passing through West Point to assess their spatial ability and navigation skills.
In the real-world environment, spatial ability generally refers to navigation ability, the ability to wayfind, the ability to retrace a route that you've maybe taken only once, the ability to estimate what direction you've come from and how far you've come.
On your feet! Are you ready?
We said hello!
All right, get back down there. Let's go.
The cadets must find at least 8 out of 10 waypoints scattered over a confusing terrain. As they reach each point, they have to get their card stamped. It's 7 a.m. and they've got up to 4 hours. But the quicker they complete the course, the higher their score. Female cadet Kristen is nervous compared to her male colleague Matthew, who appears confident and is the first to get away. Malinowski has found that men and women tend to tackle the course in very different ways.
The men tend to do a little bit better. They find more points. The women tend to express higher levels of anxiety. They tend to express less confidence in their map reading abilities. And overall, they tend to have a little bit more problem finding as many points on the course.
From the outset, Matthew appears to be doing better. He has already found his first coordinate. Kristen, on the other hand, is hesitating. She's not quite sure which way to go next.
Some researchers have suggested that men and women use different wayfinding strategies, that men tend to navigate within a larger reference system. They use things such as the cardinal directions, north, south, east, west, or they use a far-off object such as the sun or a mountain to navigate, whereas women may use more of a route strategy where they go from point to point to point. They may go from point A to point B and then try to get from point B to point C, and don't really have a complete idea of where they are within a larger frame of reference.
Kristen is now finding it a bit easier and is on track. But in his haste to complete the course, Matthew suffered a slight setback.
All right, 10 over 10.
Outstanding.
Outstanding. Good job. Good job. Go sign in. Go sign in.
Great job.
How many did you get?
So how did our two cadets fare? Kristen took her time and got 10 out of the 10 points. Matthew completed the course in a faster time, but in his rush to come first, was disqualified.
I lost my card, but it was good until I lost it. If it hadn't been for that, I probably would have done well, because I did well in the practice walk.
I just knew that as long as I just took my time and was careful about where I was going and looked at features and everything, that I would be fine.
Kristen beat Matthew this time, but this is rare. Malinowski's research shows that in general, men tend to excel at tasks that involve spatial intelligence, such as navigation and three-dimensional problem solving, whereas women have a much stronger capacity for languages and communication. Our evolutionary history may help to explain these differences.
Men's spatial ability comes from millions of years of catching animals and bringing them home. Men had to go out every single day and collect game that was dangerous and big. They needed all kinds of spatial skills in order to surround the animals and track the animals and find their way back home. And that has left men around the world today with a better ability at all kinds of spatial relations.
The brain is the biological root of these behavioral differences between the sexes. But why do male and female brains function in such different ways? Raquel and Ruben Gur are neuroscientists. They are interested in how men and women use their brains to perform a range of activities. They also happen to be married to each other, so like most couples, they have a few leads. In particular, they want to know why men and women react so differently to emotion.
Emotion is a very important part of human behavior. In a way, it's the spice of life, in a positive way. The emotion of love or warmth, of joy, and in a negative way, anger at times, violence.
To investigate what happens in the brain when processing emotion, they invited student volunteers to their MRI scanner.
Climb up and sit on the bed.
They wanted to see which parts of the brain are active when men and women think about emotions.
Now what will happen is you will see faces, and you'll have to make decisions about those faces.
The volunteers are shown photographs of faces which depict various emotions. They are then asked questions about the emotions expressed while their brains are scanned. The initial findings that women are better at recognizing emotions than men were not that surprising.
A woman is able to recognize the emotion on a face even before she would recognize that it's a face rather than something else. A man first has to make sure it's a face and then starts figuring out what the emotion is.
The real breakthrough was the discovery of the small amount of brain power women need to process emotion. The colored areas show how little of the female brain is being used, whereas men use much more of their brain to process the same information.
Well, as you can see, there's much more in men, there's much more activation in the back of the brain. It's a part that deals with processing the sensory information that is in the face. And they also show a lot more activation in the emotional brain. So they have to really look into the detail of the face to figure out the emotion.
The regions that women need are much more focal. It's as if they have a more well-oiled apparatus and ability to recruit the specific brain regions that are needed to process the information. Women feel more at home in processing faces.
The volunteers were also given a computer test on emotions. Women's brains have many more neural connections between the two hemispheres. Men's brains are less well connected, so each hemisphere is more specialized and must work harder. But there's a problem when a man needs to use both hemispheres at once. Emotional thought starts in the limbic system and is processed in the right-hand side of the brain, while speech is in the left. With the poorer flow of information between hemispheres, he'll end up using much more of his brain to understand emotions. So it really is biologically harder for a man to express emotions, whereas women are better wired to convert feelings into words. This difference in wiring can also be seen in the ability of men and women to multitask. We've all suffered it at some point, and it's a source of argument in most homes. Women seem to have no trouble tackling many things at once, whereas men tend to focus on one thing at a time. To demonstrate the point, 4 women and 4 men were asked to complete several tasks in 4 minutes. They had to make tea, answer the phone, take messages, answer the door to a courier, type a letter, photocopy some documents, and microwave some food. How will the two sexes cope? From the start, the difference is obvious. Sheila leaves the copier working while she answers the phone. Mohammed doesn't.
Hello.
Likewise, when Marie answers the door, she leaves the copier going, whereas Alex doesn't. On average, the men only fully achieved 4 of the 8 tasks, whereas all of the women managed all of the tasks.
I knew once I bought the kettle I could start doing something else, and the photocopy would take a few seconds to do 3 pages, so I need to start something else.
Really and truly, it's better just to do one thing at a time, but I was thinking of everything at the same time and it was confusing me.
Concentrating on one thing at a time, but having the others sort of in the back of your mind, you know that you've got something else to do.
Push for time, you know, try to do it all at once. Just need a bit more time. That's it, really.
Women can carry out parallel tasks because both sides of the brain act simultaneously, whereas poorer connections between the 2 halves of men's brains may prevent them from completing one activity before starting the next.
The differences that we are familiar with, what's sometimes called the spotlight mind of the male and the floodlight mind of the female, are probably largely socially determined. Women have to learn multitasking because, in general, they do multitask. Most women become mothers and they also work. And even if they don't work, running a family is the equivalent of running a small business. Most women are, by nature, business women.
The business of life continues to reveal further differences between the sexes, right up to the final hurdle, old age. As men and women progress through middle age, a new set of differences begins to emerge. The flood of hormones rushing around the body starts to subside, and in women, the change is dramatic. It signals the end of child-producing years and more. Menopause has far-reaching consequences which extend throughout the female body. The organ responsible is the hypothalamus, which sits at the base of the brain. This great motor of the menstrual cycle starts to sputter and alters the balance of hormones. Most scientists believe there is no such thing as male menopause, but changes do happen to the male middle-aged body. They can suffer from low libido, as well as fatigue and irritability. Men can go on having babies until they die, but they just won't be around to look after them. Liz Oakham is 50 and is going through the change. The fluctuating hormone levels make egg production erratic until eventually her regular cycle shudders to a complete halt. Her supply of eggs is depleted.
Well, I suppose I realised it was the menopause because I started to have periods that weren't coming quite so regularly. I used to get the odd, I thought at first they were panic attacks. You never knew when you were going to have one, and they sort of come from the pit of your stomach and sort of wash over you.
Liz's husband Bill is a London cab driver. He's suffered from Liz's dramatic mood changes.
It just wasn't her, you know. I mean, my missus has always been sort of cope with everything. If I ever had a problem, I'd go to her, and we've always been able to talk. But no, she changed. She really did change.
Menopausal women like Liz either have no symptoms of the change, or they can suffer a range of them, including memory loss, balding, mood swings, and hot flashes. At night, Liz often suffers from hot flashes. As her estrogen levels dip, the reaction of the brain is to fool the body into thinking it's overheating. To get rid of this excess warmth, the blood vessels near the surface of the skin dilate, causing a hot flash. But hot flashes aren't the only problem. The hormonal turmoil has other effects. Women's muscles become weaker as they gradually turn to fat. Bones become thinner and more fragile because estrogen normally stimulates bone cell growth and repair. During menopause, a woman loses about 20% of her strength, which makes her skeleton even more prone to injury. But why do women go through the menopause? It appears to be unique to humans, so what are the potential evolutionary benefits?
I'm not having any periods and I can't have any babies, but I'm going to have my kids' babies to look after and love, and yeah, I quite enjoy that.
Perhaps menopause offers survival advantages to subsequent generations. The Hadza tribe suggests how menopause might actually be part of such a grand evolutionary scheme, which enabled humans to dominate the earth. Hadza grandmothers provide childcare, while mothers work in the fields. Studies have shown that these grandchildren are healthier and grow faster than children raised only by their mothers.
There's a recent anthropological explanation for that, and it's called the grandmother hypothesis. It's the theory that older women were absolutely essential to the band and essential to themselves because they played the role of grandmothers. If she stopped ovulating early, she could use her waning amount of energy, instead of having another child that would tire her out, devoting her time and resources to helping her daughter and her grandchildren. She could help her own DNA while she preserved her own energy. With menopause, levels of estrogen go down, unmasking levels of testosterone. And testosterone is a classy drug. It's associated with rank and power. And in case you haven't noticed, even in your family, postmenopausal women speak their mind.
But the men face a different fate. They tend to die much younger. By the age of 85, there are 3 women for every man. Women appear to be better survivors all through life. They have better immune systems to fight off illnesses. More men die in accidents and wars. More men commit suicide. Men die younger of most diseases. Biology seems to work against them.
There are 2 explanations which are given for the shorter life of the male, hormonal and genetic. Testosterone is not good for your long-term health, and it is one argument, and the other is that the female's body is actually the body's cells are more resilient.
But living longer is not necessarily the easier option. Eleanor Kalins married in 1948.
I was married 45 years. My husband's name was Larry, and he was a great guy, he really was. I didn't expect for him to die. You don't think those things when you marry. You think you're going to grow old together. That's hard.
To combat loneliness, many of today's seniors decide to revisit the dating game after years away.
How are you? So better.
In order to try to meet a man, Eleanor joined the local over 55 singles group, where the men are spoiled for choice.
There aren't enough men to go around at the dances, not at all. And they have what's called a mixer, where the women line up on one side and the men line up also. But many men cheat. They see a particular woman they want and they'll wait, or they'll just go over and ask her to dance.
Biology and age dictate that any relationships that do blossom may not last very long.
Oh, I had 2 die on me already, besides my husband. One man died sitting next to me. He just keeled over and died. And that was really a romance. And the man, I just lost this other man 2 months ago.
So why do women live longer? We now know that women's genetic makeup makes them stronger contenders throughout life. Inside the cell of every person is a nucleus which contains the code that determines when and how that cell will die. Within each nucleus are the 23 pairs of chromosomes which store this vital information. However, there's a crucial difference between men and women. The X chromosome, with its 1,000 genes, carries a lot of genetic information. Men have only 1 copy, whereas women have 2. And this gives women an important advantage. If there's a coding error on one X chromosome, the other can step in to avoid the potentially fatal consequences of a damaged gene.
Females may be more resilient because they have two complete chromosomes, and they have what's known as mosaicism. That's to say, some of the cells in the female's body use one of the X's, and some of the other cells use the other X. So in a sense, they can cover their losses by using one or other of the X chromosomes. This seems to confer some resilience on the female over her lifespan.
From the evolutionary point of view, a man is expendable once he's passed on his seed. He does not need to live very long to guarantee the survival of his genes. But if his children are to survive, it's vital their mother and grandmother live long enough to nurture and support them.
Men are the expendable sex because women are the ones that rear the babies. And because they're so expendable, they have been built to tolerate risk and to go and seek risk and to seek danger and to, and those are things that you need in order to protect and provide for the group.
There are fundamental biological differences which will always separate men from women. But in looking at the way our bodies were made, it's clear that we were designed to complement each other.
People have tried to turn a boy into a girl and a girl into a boy, and it does not work. The brain is built long before infancy. In fact, it was built on the grasslands of Africa millions of years ago, and boys will be boys and girls will be girls even if we survive as a species a million years from now. I think men and women are like 2 feet. They need each other to get ahead.
Maybe it's best to accept what nature provides and celebrate the differences.